Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Warm Down podcast episode. As always, my content in August is going to be sponsored by the One Football app, and you can check this app out in the description below and find out what's going on. The Matic one is very important to everybody at the moment. Obviously, this one here talking about Neymar not being as important as Messi or Ronaldo, obviously. There's loads of world football news in this app which you should come and check out. Everything from Premier League to La Liga, Italy, Spain, everything. Even all the transfer rumours here, so we can see like Phil Bardsley to Burnley, that's a bit of a strange one. Jack Wilshere to West Ham, that's another strange one. Alexis Sanchez to Manchester City, that's one that's going to rumble on all summer long, I reckon. I think this could be a massive deal for Manchester City if this one goes ahead. Like I said, you can get all this app, everything that you need in the description below. Click the link, support them. They're supporting me for this month. You can even check out this week's game with Manchester United and Sampdoria. This weekend's game, which has just gone with Manchester United against Vålerenga. It's an absolutely banging app, loads of detail on it. Definitely need to be checking it out. It's well worth it for a free app. Get the notifications on, get everything you need to know. This week's episode is with author Simon Wadsworth. He is the author of this awesome book about Manchester United captains. Definitely worth a read, and this is definitely worth a watch or a listen if you prefer to listen to it on iTunes. Check it out. Hello everybody, welcome to the Warm Down. Today's guest is Manchester United author Simon Wadsworth. Simon, thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem, Steve. Good to see you again.
Right, so for those who don't know, Simon is a Manchester United author. Got a couple of books out there at the moment. One is about Manchester United captains. One is about Willie Morgan, which I've not read, but I'm going to read because I don't know enough about... It's like the dark ages of United, isn't it, that really? Because it's post-Busby and it's before Fergie and it's kind of left in the dark a little, isn't it?
It's exactly the same thing as what happened when Fergie left, because you know you've got the best team in the world. You're 1968 European champions. You've got 3 players in the team that have been European Player of the Year. Where'd you go from that? How do you improve it?
But yeah, you get relegated.
Well, what Matt decided to do was he went and broke the transfer record, and he went and bought Willie from Burnley, who was supposed to be... But Willie was actually supposed to be signing for Leeds at the time, but Matt went in there, and as soon as he came to Old Trafford, that was it, done. George, he took the number 7 shirt off George, gave it to Willie, and everything looked to be going great. I mean, they lost the World Club Championship to Esperantes, but everything seemed to be right. But then Matt decided he was going, handed over, and as with happened after Fergie left, the standard of players that United bought at the time just went downhill, and it went downhill rapidly. So, like Willie said, right team but wrong time.
So Willie Morgan's definitely one that I want to get in. But your uncle also passed away at the Munich air disaster, didn't he? Which is an incredible connection.
Yeah. Don Davis was working for the Manchester Guardian. He also used to be the BBC commentator for the older viewers of this on Manchester United. We
have a few actually.
Yeah, and he went under the pen name. Your granddad will remember him. The Old International was what he was called, and unfortunately, on that February day, he never came back, which is sadness. But you know, it's kind of, the family has always been linked with United, and Manchester United, I've got to say, I've always been very kind to the family. They've always looked after us if we've ever needed anything, tickets, and we've had some great, I don't know whether the word great is great, but we've had some nice times at the anniversaries on the 40th and the 50th. We've had some good times where all the families have got together. I had the pleasure of sitting with Duncan Edwards' mum and Tommy Taylor's sister. I think it was the 40th and stuff like that. And some of the great families that you meet, and some of the stories that you hear that don't often get spoke about, but get talked about when the families get together, are really good.
Duncan Edwards and Tommy Taylor, that's 2. We're talking world-class elite level players, aren't they? When you listen to some of the stories about them and the stats that you see about them.
Yeah.
Stats don't tell the whole story, but when you look what they was doing at the age they was doing it as well, we lost a lot, didn't we? There, we lost a lot.
Well,
I think that goes without saying.
Not only United. You look at England. I mean,
my granddad's adamant we was winning that 58.
Well, you know, with Duncan, who was a colossus and could play anywhere. I've actually got a tape at home which I keep if ever I need to smile. It's I've interviewed Wilf McGuinness, who's just a fantastic guy, a couple of times. But if you ever get him to tell his Duncan Edwards...
Paul, actually. I might try and get
Wilf's not too well at the moment, but if you can ever get a chance to talk to Wilf about Duncan, and some of the stories are absolutely fantastic. About one time when they were playing at Spurs, and people were giving Jimmy Murphy stick all the time about, you know, where's your famous Duncan Edwards, where's anything like that, and Duncan picks the ball up in his box, and he passes it to Wilf. Wilf passes it back, and then he spreads it out to the left wing, and the ball comes back to him. He spreads it to the right wing. The ball comes back to Duncan. He beats a couple of men, and from 30 yards, he shoots a screamer. And Jimmy Murphy turns around to the Tottenham crowd and says, "That's Duncan Edwards." And as for Tommy, the smiling assassin, sorry, not silent.
So his goals to game ratios.
Just unbelievable. In the air, both feet. Absolutely, what a player. And to go with that, let's not forget the fantastic Dennis Viollet, who was just unbelievable in his record. So, yeah,
that's an excellent documentary actually that his daughter's done, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, it's great. I'd recommend that for anybody who's not seen it.
Yeah, I learnt a lot watching that because I didn't know that he'd gone on to America. And
Dennis is how shall we say this? Dennis was the Ryan Giggs of his time, shall we say? He had an eye for the ladies. And around Manchester, Dennis was well known with the ladies, and there are a lot of theories as to why he left Manchester United all of a sudden overnight.
I think she mentions it in the book.
I think yes. Shall we say there were a certain amount of husbands that were happy to see the back of Dennis, but God bless him.
Swordsman. There was another one that just sprung into my head that I meant to ask you about as we was talking about that. It was a book or a documentary, I can't remember. Oh, it was The Greatest. Have you read the James Layton's The Greatest?
Yes.
What a book that is.
About Duncan.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a United fan, is he, James? I think he just took
Forest or something.
Yeah, he took it on as and a lot of it is old stuff that he's rehashed and things like that. I would recommend to anybody, if you want to know about Duncan Edwards, dig out anything by Tom Clare.
Yes, Tom Clare's someone I want to get on here.
Tom Clare,
He's in America, isn't he?
We'll talk later on about Tom, and I'll sort something out with that. Tom Clare is an absolutely fantastic writer and an expert on United, and especially about the Babes. If you want to know about Babes.
Only a brief interview, like a 2-3 minute interview with him on Full Time Devils. I think on the 2015 tour we managed to grab him, I think.
Yeah, good guy.
I'd love to get an hour with him.
Yeah, Tom's unfortunately once again Tom's getting on a bit, and he's not too well, but he we always have an end of season do where he comes over and all friends. We get a lot of people coming over from America, and we all get together and talk United, and we always have top guests there. Dennis Law.
Dennis isn't well as well, is it? I mean, there's a lot of them. Even there's going to be a period in a few years, unfortunately, I think, where we're going to lose a few.
Unfortunately, Nobby is really poorly.
Yeah.
I was talking to his son Rob at the do, and Nobby is really, really poorly, and it's something that a bit of a passion of mine has been that there's two English players that have only ever two English players that have won the World Cup and the European Cup.
Actually, there's three, isn't there? But there was a guy that was on a bench, or he was in a squad in '66. Is it Callahan with Liverpool?
Has Callahan ever won a European Cup?
Yeah, he won it with Liverpool, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, because I corrected myself on this. I've been saying
that's
two
something.
forever.
I've always thought there was only two English players, but at United, shall we say at United, only two English players have ever won the World Cup and the European Cup. One of them, got a knighthood and a stand and everything like that. And poor old Nobby ended up...
Mancunian.
Poor old, exactly. Colliers lad, St Patrick's, who ended up having to sell his medals.
I would love to do something.
And Nobby isn't... He didn't get any of the credit. What I will say for those who, and I said this to his son, for anybody who ever met Nobby, you never left Nobby Stiles without a big smile on your face, because he was the hardest man to get away from. You'd meet Nobby and say hi Nobby and start talking. Once you got Nobby talking football, you were looking at your watch and you couldn't get away from it.
When my dad was 5, I think, my granddad was working on the lifts in North Stand in Old Trafford because I think lifts must have been so unreliable then that you had to have an engineer just permanently when people were using them. So he just used to take my dad in. He said, and all the players used to come in because the players' lounge was up on the top there. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't even picture where this would have been. I'm sure North Stand, but whatever. They said all the players come in wearing like big overcoat Max and stuff like that. He said, and Nobby's come in. He said he's got glasses on. And it was my dad's favourite player, so my dad, little 5-year-old, must have been about that big. Yeah. He's not tall anyway. And my granddad's going, hey, look, Nobby Stiles. And my dad's looking at him, and then like looking down, and he's like, fucking hell's wrong with you? So all the players get out, and they all disappear. I think you might have said it on the podcast that we had my granddad on, actually. But he's like, what's the matter with you? And he goes, that wasn't Nobby Stiles. He goes, he's wearing glasses, you idiot. So then they took him in the players' lounge, and he got all his stuff.
Well, they always said Nobby was a dirty player. Because he would kick anybody, and that really was because he couldn't see. That's why no United player would ever go anywhere near him, because he would just kick anything. if you thought the ball, but massively underrated. Was a fantastic player, and part of the World Cup and European Cup winning side, which says it all.
Yeah, he was a player that was integral at the pinnacle of English and United football in the 60s, and he's got a street named after him. And that's about it, isn't it?
There's loads, and you think of him, and Crerand's another one, who doesn't get anywhere near the credit he did because of having Nobby, Dennis, Bobby, and George in the team. Everybody else seems to have forgotten.
Take a back seat,
and Crerand was the guy who pulled the strings, and there was the saying that when Paddy played well, United played well, and there certainly wasn't a better passer of the ball in that team than Paddy.
Paddy's also insane, which is a brilliant trait.
That does help. that does help. I've still got the tape at home. This is how sad I am of when we got beaten by 5-1 by City and
89.
And the T-shirts are printed and they've all got the tattoos and everything. And afterwards, I was coming home from the game because I was just down. And you listen to Paddy, and he claims that we're the better team. He claims that City are lucky, we're the better team. I mean, fair dues to him.
I love how biased he is.
That Hughes does score an absolute screamer, and he says it's the best goal. But he's actually arguing with all his City fans that we're the better team on the game and that we're losing. So God bless Paddy.
He was a troll before Twitter existed, wasn't he?
Fantastic guy.
I seen him at Carrington for a youth game like a year and a half ago or something like that, and he was chatting to me and Jaden, and he goes, can you help us find my car? I've lost my car.
Yeah.
So I was like, of course I will, yeah, not a problem. So I was like, what is it? And he points to like a Q7 Audi, a silver one. He goes, like that but black. So I said, all right, sound. And we walked the car park. It's not a big car park either, is it, at Carrington? So we walked the car park for 10-15 minutes, and he goes, you lads get off, I'll find it. And I'm like, are you sure? Because we've literally walked the whole car park. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. So we went and got in the car, and I had a video to do for Devils, so I did my video in the car. And then Paddy comes and gets in like a Volkswagen Passat next to us, purple.
Yeah.
Just got in it, and I was like, what the fuck?
Well, Willie joined the club, and Willie joined United. Paddy said to him, when you're driving into, you don't mind picking me up, do you? And stuff like that. And Willie said, no, do a heck and stuff like that. So because the first thing that happened, to put this in context, the first thing that happened when Willie joined the club is Jimmy Murphy took him up to the what's it called, the stand to have a look, the director's box and everything like that, and he what's it called, he just looking out over the ground, and then he looked at the flags and he said, what do you see? And he said, I see the tricolour. And Jimmy Murphy said, you'll do for me, son. And because in those days, if Sir Matt was in charge, basically the Catenians ran the club, and if you were a Catholic, you were fine as far as Manchester United were concerned. And so anyway, the story goes back. He gets sent to pick Paddy up, and he arrives there. They were told the coach was leaving at 10 o'clock, so he's round at Paddy's at 9 o'clock. I mean, he's on the other side of Barton Bridge, so there wasn't a problem.
Yeah, not far.
And of course he's knocking, there's no answer. Knocking again, there's no answer. He's getting worried, he's looking as well. And then Paddy's window goes up, and he said, I've just got Willie, come in, we'll have some breakfast. And Willie's thinking, oh no. So Willie goes in and they have some breakfast, and then he said, I want you to listen to this new album I've got, Irish Rebel songs. So he's putting this on, and Willie's thinking, oh, what am I going to do? And he said they finally got in there at about 20 past 10. And the coach, and he said Matt is waiting there with a face like thunder, and he said, and Paddy just walks on whistling like nothing's ever happened and stuff like that, and Willie goes up and said, I'm sorry boss, and he said, doesn't matter, get on the coach and stuff like that, and as they're driving back, as they're leaving the coach, so Matt just grabs him by the shoulder and gently whispers, I think you better let Paddy make his own way, and that was Paddy. Paddy was always late for training and everything.
So he's always been insane.
Always, and always had an excuse. He always used to say the bridge was up. That was always his excuse. He'd walk in late for training all the time, but everybody loved Paddy, and that's the way it was.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely insane. But yeah, everybody loves him.
Oh,
I love that he goes and watches the 18s and he goes and watches the 23s. Not when he's working.
No,
he just goes.
He is absolutely mad about United. Yeah.
What have you made of the tour so far?
I've got to say that I personally am disappointed in our lack of transfer activity.
I saw you post yesterday.
I think I'm going to be. I think there's a surprise coming. I really do. I think Woodward is desperate to land that big one. I think he thinks it'll make his mark. Now, I think we both agree that big one being Gareth Bale. I think that's who he's going for. He went for him hard when Moyes was there, and that didn't work. And I think it's one of those things that's actually staying with him. I think personally, we lost a centre forward. We bought a centre forward. We bought a centre half who looks like he's going to need a little bit of time to settle in and get used to the pace of football, and he needs bulking up. But apart from that, we're basically the same team now.
I think I agree with that, but I also think Lukaku offers more than just a straight swap.
Oh,
I think
no,
he changes the style of play in the
does.
final third.
He does, and he's a big, strong, pacey guy. And don't get me wrong, I heard about 9 or 10 weeks ago. I heard that we were buying Lukaku from a journalist friend of mine who said, "No," he said, Jose's mad for him. He's desperate to get him.
Wasn't Jamie Jackson, man?
No.
Because he said it on one of our videos, and it was out of the blue, and it
was
the end of the season, and everyone was like,
"Yeah, this is a guy who commentates, that does a lot on United for one of the big papers." But he was telling me that this was definite, and I was saying, "No." And I spoke to people.
Definitely quiet, wasn't it?
I spoke to people connected to Everton, and they were saying, "Look, the deal's done. He's going to Chelsea." Yeah. Chelsea have told us. He's told us. So, obviously, we send Agent Pogba, does his job. He signs for us. Everton, absolutely furious at him because he's caught them with the pants down. He made them look a bit foolish. They fined him as well because of other things. But on the day it happened, Chelsea get back in touch with them and say, right, whatever United have done, we'll match. There isn't a problem. We'll match it. He didn't want to. Well, I think most people know that the deal had been done before they ever went on that holiday, and the photographs had been done and things like that. So to go back to this tour, my concern is that basically we're the same team, and that team last year wasn't good enough. I think we're weak in midfield.
I definitely agree on that one. I think without Herrera the other night,
without Herrera, exactly. And what it doesn't do is, what I want to see is I want to see someone nasty in midfield who does that nasty, horrible job.
Fosu Mensah's that guy.
You've been saying that for 2 years.
He's Brian Robson. Well, he might not have the goal scoring prowess of Brian Robson,
give him the chance.
He's got that drive.
I'm with you on that. Give him the chance. That I don't know if Jose's that kind of manager. He does like. I'm impressed by the amount of kids he has brought in, because before he was always, he wants to win things, and he's under a lot of pressure to win things.
Oh God, yeah.
But we need somebody in there to release Pogba. Because I think we'll see that. Because I really believe Pogba's a Rolls Royce of a player.
Oh God!
From being because if you remember when he was in the youth team,
we've not seen him do it United since he come back is those 40-yard goals.
Well,
we used to do him day in day out in the 80s.
I remember when Patrick Vieira was in his pomp, and Patrick Vieira used to push. When people tried to settle him, and he would just stroke them away like a dad playing with his kids. Pogba was like that when he used to play with the kids. You used to think, this isn't fair, And
we've got Lukaku doing that up front. At
the
moment,
this is what exactly. But someone needs to do that and do the horrible job that lets Pogba off the reins. So we need someone like that. It makes me sad to see Carrick now, because Carrick was a dream footballer, another one underestimated, never got the credit he was due, but a beautiful footballer. But his legs have gone.
Look at his career, man. Look, his signing in 2006 signalled the start of that £300 that we won.
Do you remember people laughing at us?
Because you've replaced Roy Keane with him.
How much we'd paid Tottenham? I forget how much we paid.
18 million.
18 million.
Which is a fuck all at the moment. You've got 10 years out the guy. It's nothing, is it?
It was just, and he was just Mr. 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10, which is what if you're playing for United, then that's what you want. What concerns me is,
if he was Spanish, he'd have been in a second and third in Ballon d'Or like Xavi was, because he was on that level.
All I'm saying to you is, if you put Smalling up for sale, are any of the top 5 going to touch him? No.
Arsenal might.
Maybe a couple of years ago. Jones,
I think
Nobby, Lingard. No one's going to touch him. I know Lingard's got he's got his critics, he's got his fans. To me, he's an academy player, and typical academy player who gets the ball. I think his stats are probably brilliant because he makes a safe pass. He doesn't take people on, and
I think what he brings is is more in the work rate kind of thing, and I like him as that kind of player.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Chelsea game last year with him and Rashford up front,
Yeah.
they completely bullied that back four.
Oh,
That's
what's.
I don't think he's a starter, but he's definitely got a place in the squad for me.
Yeah, no, I get that, but unfortunately, like nobody played more than him on the tour, did they? I think he played them. No, I think he started everything and played the most minutes, which. And I, unfortunately, it's like we've been spoilt, as United fans. And I was talking about this last night with some friends that we used to have, Darren Fletcher, massively. He got some bad times when he was at United, and he would sit there on the bench. But when he came on, he did a job, and he did it to its benefit. And we had such a strong squad. I am very, very worried about the squad City are building. I think City.
I am and I'm not, because I think that they've not directly addressed what their issue was for me, and he's stacking up players. I also think Sanchez is going there. I would love it if he came. If he came here,
for us,
I would go lump on winning the league.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm with you.
I think he's going City, and I don't think he's going to improve them as mental as that
I've
sounds.
said that to all my City mates. I've said, who do you drop?
Yeah.
Who do you drop? Because
you've got De Bruyne, you've got Jesus, you've got Silva, you've got Sane, you've got Sterling.
Yeah.
These are all players that occupy. They might not be exactly the same position, but they occupy the same space on a pitch.
Yeah.
So who are you dropping out of that?
But that was the problem we used to have. That Fergie always used to have.
Not that level.
He had four top strikers. I mean, that man. You got to remember. Look at that team when he had Sheringham, Cole, York, and Solskjaer. All of them could have walked into any team.
It was all at different stages of the career. He's got a load of players now, potentially Pep, in that same position at the same stage of his career.
I'm with you. I just wish we had that problem of that.
I'd rather have the problem than not have enough players. Yeah. But I think if he'd have bought a Sanchez level player at centre half, if he'd have bought like a Bonucci or someone like that in at centre half, and maybe someone like a holding midfielder, and then got that as well, I'd have gone, oh shit. But he's not done that. He's bought a lot of fullbacks, and he's looking at buying another.
Yeah.
And he's relying on Company, who, let's face it, when he plays, not many better, but won't play all year.
What Company does, though, which is what I really like about him, is he makes the players around him better players.
Do you know he leads the analyst sessions at City?
Yeah,
which makes me think he's going to be an amazing manager.
We were buying him. We went in for him.
When he was not finished. Anderlecht.
Yeah, and he'd not finished his studies and stayed there and stuff like that. And I mean, the guy's like the family he's married into a lot. There's a lot of Reds in there, so he's always very respectful of United. And I've met him a couple of times, and he's always been like a nice guy. I mean, he's sitting and he can't help that. But
he's captain.
Yeah, he's not one of these ones who just talks rubbish. If you actually speak to him about football, a lot of what he says, like you say, he reads the game so well.
Yeah, well, that when I found out he leads the analyst sessions at City, I was like, oh shit, because that's something you don't hear about.
Well, we need, and what we are absolutely massively short of is leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
In ours, we need a captain. We need
as I don't think Rooney was going to be starting 11 this year. His experience and his leadership is obviously good. I think we underestimate his leadership, because I obviously talk to a lot of the kids, and a lot of the kids say he's always there for them. He's always giving them a little bit of word of advice.
There isn't. Poor old Wayne is, unfortunately for Wayne, he's from 16. People say, he's only 31. Look at the miles on his clock.
He's played more than Scholes did when he retired.
Yeah, look at where he's been. The games he's playing. And the fact that he was one of those players that he wouldn't take 10 minutes out of in a game and just disappear and rest. He always wanted to be on it.
He's like a puppy, isn't he?
Yeah, and well, exactly. And I think it's quite interesting now he's left the club. Some of the things he's had to say, and people take them as criticism. I speak it. I see it as telling the truth. When he said they had certain standards to keep at Manchester United that we as supporters expect, and probably the staff there and the players that they bought, were never going to help him.
He was also partly to blame to that. Why wasn't he saying this a year ago when he was wearing the armband? Why was it?
Because I think when you're at the club, and they're paying your wages, to be openly critical of the owners and the transfer.
It's not the transfers. There's a way of saying, if the people in the squad aren't pulling the weight, there's a way of saying that without being overly negative and critical.
Yeah, but I think at the time he was desperate to try and get back in the team and be in the good books, and he was trying to get contracts and stuff like that. So I don't really blame him for that. He had a job to do, and let's face it, if you're the captain of the team and you say the players we bought aren't good enough, is that being a good captain? You know, it's if you're saying, you know, I'm playing with you and you're not good enough, you know, it's quite obvious to everybody that Fellaini is not good enough, and nobody will ever convince me that Fellaini is good enough for a United side. I understand why people play him. I understand the job he does, you know. But even on this tour, he's elbows and, you know, and things like that.
We want to see football.
Full credit to him for that, because the final against Ajax.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
He absolutely, he did what he had a job to do, you know, and he bullied them, and they were kids.
I think that's why Jose's kept him around, because he can ask him to do something.
We're now, aren't we now? Unless I'm mistaken, and I'm sure people watching this might correct me if I am, but we're now the biggest team, aren't they? Because Jose always buys. We've got some proper height in our team, big, powerful team. And you looked at us on tour, and I was looking at us, and you know, we've got some big lumps in there and stuff like that, and we're going to make it, you know,
and then
difficult to play.
Lingard is about 5'8", 5'9", about 10, well, probably about 8 stone.
I'll be interested to see Mkhitaryan. I'll be interested to see what he does, because, you know, it's all right saying I need to do this and I need to do that. He definitely needs to step up and start, you know, making an impact on the game. You're a fan of Blind. I know you are. Unfortunately for me, I think if he was playing in Spain, I think he'd be a wonderful player.
I don't think he could do that job in midfield for us.
No, honestly, Steve, I think the power and pace of the Premier League is too much for him. That's when he gets caught out. You see teams that we play.
Carrick got away with it by being quite tall, didn't he?
Yeah,
and quite short actually.
And Carrick was never got put in full back. I mean, Carrick would have looked, if they played Carrick as a left back, the same thing would have happened to him. And it happens to, you see teams, as soon as they see Blind,
he was also attacking against Barcelona. Blind was attacking, and you're like, of course you're going to get caught out. You're marking Messi at the other fucking end. You have a day off of attacking, don't you? If you're marking Messi, you're like, you fucking deal with that.
And I mean, we've got, let's face it, we can forget. I mean, I know City getting all excited because, you know, they beat Real Madrid 4-1.
Yeah, we just dicked them.
God bless them. You know, let them get excited. You know, City fans do tend to get, you know, a little bit more excited. You know, what they need to remember is they've won the same amount of trophies as Dennis Irwin. You know, so we don't really see them. You know, we have to work with them and live near them and things like that. But rivals, I don't think so. You know, if you're talking Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Liverpool, I've got to accept that. Then that's our real rivals.
Yeah, I mean, AC Milan, Juve, Bayern Munich, Ajax,
all those kind of
Liverpool.
Yeah. Well, you know, as Barcelona said, just by the nature of who we are, makes us a threat. You know, that clubs don't want to face us. Now, I'm not saying that City aren't a good team and they aren't going somewhere, but they do the supporters do tend to get a little bit overexcited when, you know, when on a friendly. I mean, we've learned, I think under Van Gaal, we didn't lose, did we? We beat Liverpool. We beat
tour.
Yeah. Well, on that
I think
tour
even
he went.
on Moyes' tour, we completely annihilated teams.
Beat everybody, and you thought, I couldn't wait for it to start, and then suddenly I think we lost the first game.
Under the Van Gaal ones, we played this. I think it was Real Madrid. We played Barcelona one year. I think Real Madrid the next year. And when it must have been, that was the big house game, wasn't it? We played Real Madrid, and there was these passages of play with Hernandez and Welbeck and I think Mata, and we carved Real Madrid open, and it was like, we're not going to lose a game this year. This is incredible. But then the season starts, and he plays this whole different system, and you're like, well, what the fuck's going on here?
The worst thing that ever happened to us was that World Cup when they beat Spain, because it was a one-off. Do you remember them beating Spain and they battered Spain? Holland.
England.
Holland when he was managing Holland.
Oh, right,
and everybody.
Everyone got excited.
And everyone thought, this is it. What they
5-1,
forgot is
5-1.
every other game he went exactly back, and they managed to get to either quarters or semis by going through on penalties. By penalties because of him playing that.
He subbed the keeper on in the 90th minute for the penalties, and everyone was like, and then the keeper saves all the penalties, and like, we got a genius. We got an absolute genius.
Tactical genius. and I mean, don't get me wrong. I did a book, and it's still there. It's not been published, and I've still got it. I'll save it for some time. All about Van Gaal and Moyes, about the changeover. And due to some natures with my publishers, because of their connections to United, they loved the book, but it was too dangerous because I was quite critical about the board and Sir Alex about their choice of managers. You know, I think we both agree that Ancelotti. Was the natural was a natural choice to take over from Fergie, and he would have done the job and probably taken us to Europe. As it is, it was quite critical. But what I will give, you know, what people forget, and it is easy to criticise Van Gaal now, but the Barcelona that we see now, and Pep and people like that, they're all from the school of Van Gaal.
Yeah, well,
you know, all right, Cruyff gets all the credit, and they did fall out, but you know, it's Van Gaal that was putting Pep in, Van Gaal making him the captain, and Van Gaal bringing this style of football, and certainly when it comes to kids. So when it came to kids, he was one of these ones at United way. But unfortunately, football had moved on, you know, and he hadn't. So
well, there was a bit of a criticism last year, which was a bit tongue in cheek, of saying, you know, Pep was LVG Mark II. But I think there's some truth in that.
Oh, God,
it's not the truth. Don't misquote me on this one, because I know you love to.
Yeah.
But there is some truth, because the criticism of Van Gaal was that he was super rigid to his philosophy, which is a word that I can't even use without smiling now. But he was super rigid to his philosophy, and in the same way, so is Pep. And I agree to an extent, you have to believe in your system, otherwise you're never going to make your system work. But there was no plan B under Van Gaal, and there is no plan B for City under Pep, and that's why I'm not actually too worried about what they're going to do. They won 10 games or 12 games or some shit like that under Pellegrini.
Yeah.
They did the same last season. I was talking about never losing.
Oh, they looked. I must admit, the first 10 games I was thinking, how's he had this such effect on a team? Did you have
the feeling of when Chelsea got Mourinho in 2004, when they just went boom, and you're like, oh, this is a new shit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, and I was hoping, I must admit, that Jose would do that with us. I think he's realised. I don't think when he took over, he realised the size of the job. I think he realises it now. He's not made a bad signing.
No, well,
so far,
jury's out on Lindelof, because I started watching him in December when I heard we was linked.
Lindelof's not been given a chance. We'll see, but you know, let's face it, that Eric Bailly,
the 4 last season, all A-star, a lot of them, like completely
exactly.
Mint, all of them.
I think he's embraced. I think he's embraced the club. It's the club, the job he's always wanted, the dream he's always had. I mean, the guy was in tears when he found out that Fergie wasn't getting it.
Some of us should have been as well.
Well, you know, you know, but he's another one who'll do it, and I hope that we give him time. You know, that he doesn't get it.
I think last season's proof.
Oh, he's a winner.
If we'd have lost the Europa final, we wouldn't have sacked him. And that's a change from Moyes and Van Gaal, because I think the parameters that they was under was, you get Champions League football or the door's yours.
Well, football has completely changed because of people like yourself, Arsenal, and people like that. They've given supporters a voice, and a very public voice, and clubs are aware of it. So Woodward is absolutely, completely aware of the media, and especially social media.
I know he's aware of us.
What you do, and so if the momentum builds up, you know, and you lot are saying, you know, as you were doing,
but we were saying,
it's not
give
good
him
enough.
time, give him time.
Yeah, but what a lot
of
of the people were saying, especially under Moyes, you know, this isn't. We can see it's not working. You know, it isn't working. You know, and the same with Van Gaal when they were saying, look, lose if you want to, but lose playing football. Don't lose, because what you knew with Van Gaal is if it was 1-0 for the other team in the last 10 minutes, he was, as you said, he wasn't going to think, I'll throw everything at it. We might lose 3-0, but we'll have a goal. He was thinking.
We saw Mourinho do that though last year when the game needed chasing. He was taking defenders off and putting strikers on. I was like, didn't know Mourinho did that.
Yeah. I must admit, I mean, it does concern me that there's a couple of times that Jose will, and it's effective, he'll close the game down at 1-0. And he really will go and try. He'll take players off and he'll just try and finish with 20 minutes to go. And it means that for the last 20 minutes you're thinking, oh no, if we concede.
Was it the semi-final? The Europa semi-final, was that?
Oh
that
God.
might have been one. Or was it the quarter?
Yeah,
it might have been the quarter or the semi. It was awful.
It's a semi. Semis when if that goal gets allowed, that we're out.
Yeah, I think it was
because,
the semi.
Yeah, because he the guy who used to play for City, who misses.
Giudietti.
Who misses right at the end. Yeah, who'd been giving it. Yeah, but no.
Giudietti. Can't remember the guy's name.
I want to see us. I want to see powerful,
attacking.
Exactly.
That goal that Rashford scored against City, when we had 4 of them steaming forward. Lukaku's that's what we don't get with Zlatan. Lukaku's taking 1 or 2 of them defenders. They're seeing Rashford, Mkhitaryan, I think it might be Lingard, and Lukaku running at him, and they're going, who the fuck do I pick up here?
Yeah.
And then Rashford goes and buries it
Yeah.
himself, and you're
Well,
like,
that was my one concern about Rashford. Was great. He had all the pace in the world. He had all the confidence in the world. I worried about. I did have a concern about his finishing. The guy's been spending all his time in the gym, hasn't he? Because he's beefed up.
His general finishing's pretty good. Like if you look at some of the goals he scores, technical wise, they're fantastic. But he doesn't seem to take enough shots, and I don't know if that's sometimes he's played a bit far out. I also think that because of how skinny he was and how quick his development was, because he was literally playing under 18s. 18 months ago he was playing under 18s and not standing out playing under 18s. He was just like, he's a good player. Like that's it. Not one like I'm ready to take this guy to start.
We need. It can't be about one person, which it was last season. It's got to be 3 or 4 of them weighing in.
Yeah, you're right, because it was too much focused around how to play for Zlatan.
Yeah,
and now I think Lukaku brings other people into the game, and because he's so mobile as a forward, one of the reasons I want to see us go 3-5-2 is because I think in a midfield 3 you get the best out of Pogba. Yeah. I think in a defensive 3 you're going to get the best out of Lindelof, and I think, although I believe Rojo might be out till March now, that's a problem, because I thought Rojo, Lindelof and Baye is a pretty mean defence.
It is, apart from
it's crazy. Which I like.
He's got that Argentinian thing, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's fucking wet. He's nuts. Yeah.
You know, like Heinz used to be exactly the same. That every now and again he's got you think, what, you mad? Are mad? He's going to do somebody, and you think, crazy. Which is, I must admit, give me.
I like the intimidation.
Give me Dennis Irwin. Every single day.
I like the flavour, I like the flavour when you've just got that wildness.
No, we had, because let's face it, we had it in that team. All our great teams, it's like, I would put our 94 team, double winning team, against any...
was a team of men though, wasn't it?
Oh, it was...
Hughes, Cantona,
I remember Vinnie Jones said about us, not to quote Vinnie Jones, but he said...
that great philosopher.
The philosopher Vincent Jones of Wimbledon said that they could play you off the park, but if you wanted to mix it, if you wanted to mix it, they were happy. They had Ince, Keane, Robson,
Bruce, Pallister.
Yeah, all the way through. Hughes.
I mean, like, who didn't want to get... Giggs was tough as well. I mean, people think he was a flying winger, but he was tough.
Scholesy would, kick it. Nicky Butt. I remember Fergie saying that in one of the youth teams, when they were just really young kids, he saw Nicky Butt.
Henchman.
Take a couple of players out, when they wanted trouble, and he knew straight away that he was going to be, the kind of player that he needed in his side.
Have you seen him when he's coaching the 23s? Oh my God, he is the most angry, twisted up man in the world. Like he's like tweaks out on the sideline. Yeah. He's kicking bottles over at throwing decisions and.
Yeah, good guy. If you get a chance to talk to Nicky Butt, he's a good guy who thinks a lot more about football than he's actually giving credit.
Takes it to heart. He takes it really to heart, and I think there's a lot of room for that. I mean, some of the stuff that he's doing with the developing of the under 23s and the recruitment, like. A couple of years ago, there was all the players' parents was told, what we're going to do is we're going to recruit the absolute best of British talent, and then we're going to supplement that with world-class 16-year-olds from around the world, and they are doing that. Yeah. I haven't yet seen eyes on this Traore lad, who I believe is a copy-paste of Pogba. Right. Same for that Puigmal. Spanish are well pissed off that we've nabbed him. Yes. He's meant to be the next. Who's the
Brazilian kid we've got?
I saw him Wednesday night against Lincoln. He didn't do anything. I didn't see him on the ball. No, I didn't really. He didn't stand out. Where was we? I was sat next to where the press was sat, and there was a guy doing the analyst for United, in United track with a fucking laptop out and everything like that. And I was looking at the team sheet, and I was like, right, that's him. This is at half time. I'm like, that's him. And there was 5 subs warming up, and then someone warming up a Kufa up, and there was only 5 subs listed. So I was like, that's 6 fucking subs. I was like, that's him. I don't know who that is. So I went over to the analyst guy. I was like, who's that? And he went, what do you mean? He said that everyone's on a team sheet. I said, no, there's 17 players, and there's only 16 listed. And he looks at his team sheet, goes through his notebook, and goes, I don't know. I was like, fucking good analyst you are. So I went down to the bottom, and I shouted one of the academy lads that I know that was just warming up near the touchline. I was like, come here. I said, who's that? And he goes, oh, it's Gabby, he's called. And I said, who is he? He goes, trialist. I said, all right, okay. And as I go back up to the top, one of the lads that runs that academy review, Dave, he goes, got his name. So I've got his name as well. So we try to watch him a little bit, but he didn't really get the ball.
I'll never forget and it is a passion of mine. One of the great losses of Manchester United, and people will say he did it himself, and he was a waster and everything like that. But Ravel Morrison was. I remember watching that U team that had Pogba and Ravel, and I was fortunate enough to be at Anfield for the cup
when
game.
He scored.
Oh. When there was, let's face it,
he scored and give shit to
there was
Liverpool
10,000 of them there because they were there to see their boys beat United, and the goal he scored was a dream, and he went up to Cop and he was just. But I mean, Pogba will openly admit that he wasn't the best. That Ravel was the best player in that team, and he should have been.
He shone, but he didn't win any individual awards that year.
Oh, but he should have been. He was he could do everything. Ravel, he was a dream.
I think it was Tom
player.
Thorpe and Tunnicliffe got awards.
It's like anything; it doesn't necessarily. Let's face it. Paul Scholes never won.
Very true.
I don't think Paul Scholes ever. Aguero's never ever got in the team of the year, which just tells you everything.
I get. The longer it goes on, I think there's a slight mythologising of how good Morrison was.
I did take an interest in him at the time because I was confident.
His
I was
first
so
touch in the first team was a fucking back heel when he came. I think it was West Ham he came.
You're absolutely right. I remember
it. It was a back heel, and you're like,
oh, the guy was made. Fergie did I won't go into too many details, but Ravel had an upbringing that you wouldn't wish on anyone. He had a terrible upbringing, and the guy was struggling, all his life with demons. And Fergie did everything. He went to court for him. Shall we say, he was very selective in the truth when he was at court about him. But he did everything because Fergie could see that if you could look after him right, he sent him to Sam, hoping that Sam could sort him out. Because the potential's there, and he is that special. And unfortunately, maybe it's the people he surrounds himself with or anything, but he's never ever got it. But if any team could ever get him to play football,
he went out to Italy, didn't he, to Lazio?
Yeah.
Started off with all the right intentions, but then quickly devolved into not really doing much. One of my mates is involved at Wigan.
Yeah.
And he was not really on trial, I guess, but he was training with them before. I think it was the January window, or in the January window, it might have been. And they was like, I don't think we're going to sign him because he's come here and he's so unfit. Lazio just want rid of him.
Yeah.
And he said he's worked out that the PFA rules is you can only fine a player a maximum of 2 weeks' wages a month. So he was training for 1 week, coming back to England for 3 weeks, but getting paid 2 weeks. So in his head, that's a win.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, because if it's just about the money for you, do you know how much you would earn if you could actually turn up?
It's just
he had a couple of good games for Lazio.
Yeah, but it's for me. It will always be. He will always be the one that got away.
There's a few Rossi, Pique, especially that era. There's a few that
Pique. I must admit, I think Pique flatters to deceive. I think I think me and you could have been defenders in that Barcelona team, and we would have looked all right. You're in Spain, but the same with the Spain team. I remember Pique when he played for us. He got bullied. He got bullied an awful lot.
Early doors he did, but by the time he was making his debut,
don't worry. I'm not trying to mug the guy off and say he isn't a footballer. I'm saying
plays balls into Messi by day and balls into Shakira by night.
Yeah, exactly. Not a bad life, but I think it's one of those things that you could, depending on the team that you're playing in, you can look better.
I can't believe we chose Johnny Evans over him.
But Johnny was
logically it makes sense.
Johnny was a good lad, and he was a good footballer. And unfortunately, he was an easy target when things were going wrong. It was easy to pick a young lad and stuff like when, as like Roy Keane used to say, some of the older professionals should have stepped up and should have taken it. Taken the criticism.
And like we said earlier, that is what we're lacking right now at the moment. Is those. If you look just over the last 3 or 4 years, really, call it 4 years, call it since Fergie went, you're looking at Ashley Young, Carrick, Smalling, Jones, De Gea, Valencia, and that is it left over from Fergie's era. It's not just that, you've also not got those leaders. Zlatan's not really at the club at the moment, even though he's at Carrington training.
Yeah.
You've got Schweinsteiger was in and then out, and you think, from what I was hearing, Schweinsteiger was doing a lot of the arm around the shoulder with kids, and I can imagine that with him as well. It seems like the nicest guy in the world.
See, no, I heard from that, so a lot of the people that was really, really pissing people off was he was basically alone to himself, and that the game would finish and he would be on his way to the airport, and he would be out. He did a lot of training in Germany. He wasn't training with the first team, right. And he was flying in for games and being allowed to play. You know, it's one of those things that 5 years earlier, Warder would have played.
Yeah. God, yeah.
It's like Henrik Larsson. You know, there's all this myth about Henrik Larsson when he was at the club, and yet people who were there.
He was there, 3 months, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think he didn't score many goals, but people saying
he only played 17 games.
But people say if you saw him in training, what he brought to the training, things like Laurent Blanc, perfect example.
A few years earlier.
But, what even then, even for us, he'd lost his pace, but his touch and everything was fantastic. And Zlatan's the same. I mean, Zlatan is a product. You know, Zlatan is about Zlatan is about publishing. You know, the Zlatan brand. And
if he'd have come at 25, him and United were made for each other. If he was going to do 10 years anywhere, United was the place.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, he's lost.
Same with Eric.
He scores more goals since he's got older, but that's because he slowed down. But yeah, you would have loved to have seen him. You know, when he was in his
I think I massively underrated him prior to him coming to United and seeing what he offered.
Oh,
massively. He's scored a lot of.
I think he still feels. I think the thing for him is for his own reputation. I think he feels he's got unfinished business.
What a fairy tale that is if he comes back at Christmas and then wins us the league.
If the league gets won and he's not there, I don't think he'd ever forgive himself, because he's done it at every other club. And he does bring, like you say, he does bring certain standards to the club. You know, that he holds for himself and everything like that. What he does do, unfortunately, is he slows us down too much. So
there was times he was in like the number 6 position last year.
Yeah,
where he was counter attacking you, and you're like, you're at the wrong end of the pitch here, mate.
What I could never understand was when he was the only person scoring goals, and he would drift out to the wing and get the ball, and you're thinking, well, if you've got the ball on the wing, great, but there'd been nobody in the box. Absolutely nobody. And poor old Rashford was being expected to then brought on for the last 10 minutes, and everybody expecting the young kid to do miracles because of that. And so
I believe he's played 71 games for United. And what's even crazier is,
I think the craziest thing that who's our leading goal scorer now that Rooney's gone at the club?
Marshall? Matter?
Yeah, Juan Mata.
Mad.
Who's the greatest player in the Football League? Juan. Fantastic. You know, good guy and stuff like that. Whether he's in the past, whether he's Jose's type of player, we'll see what kind of games when he gets back. You know,
entering the last year of his contract as well. It'd be interesting to see what the crack is with that.
Yeah.
Rashford's played 71 games, and I posted that online somewhere, and someone was like, "Wow, how far is he off Giggs? Like, Joe, how many seasons does he need to catch up Giggs?" So I was like, "Well, hang on. Let's say you do 50 games a season. That's a full season in it. So that's no injuries. That's no major time getting dropped or being out of form. So that's basically being first choice every season." And I was like, right, well, for him to get, Giggs is on 963, so he needs basically 889 or something like that. And you're like, oh my God, it's like
let's just
like another 15
years
or something.
Let's have a, I mean, because I can remember Giggsy when we've had seasons when the guy used to get so much abuse. Giggs used to get buckets. It's easy for everyone to look back at him now and say, "Oh, what a servant, what a player." And
10 years ago, we played Birmingham away, right? And Nanny came on for Giggs, and I said to my dad, "I think that's the last time he's going to play for us."
Yeah, and you wouldn't have been the only one, because there was players who used to applaud when he got taken off, and he seemed to have lost. He seemed to have lost interest in the game. He seemed to only play the season before his contract was due. He'd play up, and he'd have the best season.
It'd be the 3 months before the end of the season.
Just before he would have a fantastic season.
He was on a rolling one, wasn't he?
Yeah, because God bless him, and what a player, but he still couldn't cross a ball, for anything. Compared to, I mean, I remember when he was in the team with Sharp, and Lee Sharp, who funny guy, but wasted his talent.
Definitely a funny guy.
Wasted his
weird
talent.
Guy as well, actually. Bit of a weird guy, but I remember watching MUTV when it was videos.
Yes.
Because VHS videos, because that was the only way you got it.
Yeah.
And it must have been like they used to do like a quarter season review.
They did, yeah, they did. Those ones came at the same time as the Captain's Log came out. Steve Bruce, Steve Bruce did the title-winning season where he filmed it himself on videos. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember he's in bed when he finds out the news that we won the title. I think, or is it the morning of us? Yeah, it might have been the morning that we had to go and play Blackburn afterwards. Yeah. He's in fucking bed reading the paper.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what was I saying about Lee Sharp? Yeah, but I remember there was a time as Giggs was breaking through, and Sharpie was still in the team and first choice. I remember him being interviewed and saying like, "Oh, we'll just have to see how it goes down, won't we, with us?" And you're like, "You got beat in that contest like badly. Like they moved him inside a little bit, didn't they, to try and keep him in the team, and then he was gone."
I mean, there was certain games.
I think he picked up 3 title wins in the middle.
Barcelona, Arsenal, and places like that. He had all the ability, and he was a big
6-2 against Arsenal.
He was a big lad, Lee, you know, and he had a beautiful left foot. You know, I remember going to Leeds in the season that Leeds pipped us the title. We beat them in both cups, comes away at their ground, and he was magnificent. Ended up with Leeds buying him. But he was magnificent in those games, and he should have been a player.
Though, when Giggs was, for those that are young, that don't really know Ryan Giggs, apart from that cultured central midfielder, Ryan Giggs was like Zaha, where he would twist you left and right. And
he'd leave defenders with twisted blood. He was unbelievable. He could, because what the Giggs, Fergie said it about the first time he saw him, that when Giggs was young and he used to see him
a cocker spaniel.
It didn't actually look like he was touching the ground, because he was so fast and he was so light. That he would.
He just glides, doesn't he?
I remember one of his early games. I can't get a team. I think it was Newcastle we were playing against, and one of these old pros decided, I'll sign him. I'll give him so Giggsy gets the ball, he goes out, bang, and he hits him. And he gets the ball, bang, and he hits him again, and he comes up to Robbo and says, "Oh, I'm not happy with this. I'm getting out." And Robbo said to him, "I tell you what, you come inside for 10 minutes. Let me have a go on the left wing." And stuff like that, and Robbo gets the wing, and this guy comes to tackle him, and Robbo goes bang and bang, and Giggsy said, "Never saw him again." That was it. But that's what you had a leader. That's when we had leaders like Robbo and Keane. You know,
Robbo existed. I'm going to finish on Sharpie actually. But Robbo existed in one of those dark ages where it's post-Busby and it's pre-Premier League. Really, it was kind of finished by the time.
Well, the first book I did was because I'd done lots of stuff for the Manchester Evening News, articles, and I do a lot of radio and things like this, and so I decided to do a book on the club captains. Yeah, on the club captains, and
probably can't see that on there.
For people of my age, I'm in my 50s, who went through the 80s when it was a bit of a wilderness. We got to cup finals.
Robbo and fuck all else.
If Robbo played, you were happy. You were confident, no matter who you were playing, doesn't matter. I mean, I'll still say to anybody, and anybody who was there will say the greatest game I ever played, Old Trafford, was Barcelona. When it was the scariest thing.
Can't shut my dad up about it.
I'll tell you, Steve, you had to queue up. I got to ground.
He said he walked into the ground knowing he was winning.
Oh, well.
2-0 down to Maradona's Barcelona.
You look at Maradona's face when Maradona comes out on that walks out on the pitch. And it's quite misty, and there's a lot of smoke about.
Didn't have shit floodlights as well. So it looked really dark.
The noise, and it had been there for 2 hours beforehand. And I mean, the guy who never gets the credit for that game is Remy Moses, because
I had a good chat to Webby about Remy Moses. He's just hard.
Wherever Maradona went on that night, Remy was with him, and he just gave it him and stuff like that. But to go back to Robbo, I always say what makes a special player is if you can define a decade. Now in the 70s, in the 1970s, Martin Buchan stands. People of my age will have favourite players from the 70s, whether it's Gordon, Hill, Coppell, Pearson, anybody. But the guy who stands head and shoulders above everybody is the Fonz, Martin Buchan. Great.
I think. Does Whiteside say that he was his favourite player? I think.
Oh, he was a fabulous player, and a great captain. Won the cup in Scotland and in England, but just a great player.
So he's one that I know generally fuck all about.
He works for the FA, and the great thing is he said to me, he looks after a lot of players, and we were talking about two-footed footballers, and he said that Bobby Charlton was the last two-footed footballer that we have had, and I questioned him on this, and he said, "Oh, I get players all the time." He said, I said to him, you know, are you right? Oh no, I'm two-footed. And he says, what foot would you take a penalty with? And he'll say, oh, right foot, or left foot. And he said, well, that's why I said Charlton could have hit it with either foot, and you wouldn't have stood a chance. You know, I mean, you know, he's a general, but he's a really, really good guy, Martin Buchan. If anyone ever gets a chance to have a chat with him,